So indicator three, we are applying rational number operations. And in fact, the last two lessons that I had taught you were also indicator three, in which we were adding and subtracting rational numbers and multiplying and dividing rational numbers. So all those lessons were indicator three. And now this is the last part of indicator three, which would be applying rational number operations. And so learning target, I can add, subtract, multiply, and divide rational numbers, and I can perform order of operations. So basically, this is exactly what we had done when we were, applying operations, when we were working with integers. And the same rule is here. We are basically going to use PEMDAS, that is parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, in that order, to solve these problems with rational number operations. Okay, so once again, we're going to do a problem like this, which is on the board, evaluating a, b plus c minus d, and is telling me what a is, what b is, c is, and d is. Okay, so see, the order of operations will be used to simplify the numerical expressions, that are used to simplify numerical expressions with whole numbers. It also applies to simplifying numerical expressions with rational numbers. So that's what I had just mentioned. And if the expression contains fractions and decimals, like in this case, if it contains fractions and decimals, use the commutative properties or the associative properties to group the like forms together and simplify as much as possible, and then rename the numbers in the same form. All right. So let's get started with the problem that I have on the board. And we are first going to look at, okay, what do we have as a, what do we have as b, etc. All right. And so as I can see, I've got to evaluate this, and it's telling me a is 5 6. So I am going to start now. Try to get this a little closer. There we go. All right. So we are now going to start substituting the values of these numbers. And so A is 5 6. So AB means A times B. So A is 5 6. All right. Times B is negative 4 fifth. All right. So this is, I'm going to write it like this, times negative 4 fifth. And even if I didn't write the times, if I had just put the parentheses over here, that would actually mean multiplication, right? And so this is AB, and then plus C, and C is 7500. All right. And minus D is 1/3. So first I am going to substitute the values in there. Okay. So if I look at the multiplication part first, because I'm doing PEMDAS, please remember the operations. It is in this order. Okay. So the first thing over here, I don't have exponents. I have multiplication. I don't have parentheses, exponents, but I do have multiplication. So for multiplication, I am now going to first simplify. Okay. So I can see what are the common factors. Okay. So I have 5 divided by 5. This gives me 1. And then 4 and 6 are both even numbers, so they are both divisible by 2. And this becomes 3 and this becomes 2. All right. And so I get 1 times negative 2, that gives me negative 2 over 3 times 1, so negative 2/3. Okay, so negative 2/3 plus 7500 minus 1/3. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the commutative property, and because I'm trying to group the fractions together, So I'm going to use the commutative property. I'm going to change the order of 7500 and the minus one third. So I can put the fraction right next to the fraction. Okay. So I'm going to use the commutative property and I'm going to do negative two third. All right. And this is going to be plus um, negative one third, because remember, what are we doing? If I have minus, I am adding the opposite. So I change the minus to the plus and the one third becomes the negative one third. Okay, so negative two third plus negative one third, and then I have plus 7500. Okay, now if I look at this, basically what is this? Both are the same signs, so I am going to add this and I get negative 2 and negative 1, that becomes negative 3 over 3, right? And then this is plus 7500, and I know that 3 over 3 is one whole, so this is negative 1 plus 7500. Okay, now since we have opposite signs, we are going to subtract the smaller number, the absolute values of both, basically. All right, so 1 minus 7500, and then I'm left with only 2500. Okay, I'm left with 2500, and then the sign in front of the bigger integer is negative, so this is going to be negative 2500 is the solution to this problem. Okay, so this is how we are evaluating by using the additive inverse, the commutative property, and questions like this should be solved in the order of operation method. All right, so let's try another problem. And again, remember PEMDAS. I'm just going to leave that here so that you can see it. All right. I'm going to try another problem. And I'm going to evaluate 2/5 x plus y, all right, plus z, and x is equal to, if x is equal to 7/8, okay, x is equal to 7/8, y is equal to negative 1/4, and z is equal to negative 2/3, negative 2/3. Okay, so now I have my different values over there for x, y, and z, and all I'm going to do now is I am going to substitute the values in order to solve this problem. Okay, so let's start with the substitution. I have 2/5. I'm going to bring this down as is, right? Times, this is multiplication, x is 7/8 plus y is negative 1/4. Okay, and then I have plus z, which is negative 2/3, plus negative 2/3. All right, so here are my values. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to solve what's within the parentheses based on order of operations. Okay, and within the parentheses I have this addition. Okay, and now I can see that my denominators are different, so the first thing I need to do is make a common denominator. Okay, so I'm going to bring down 2/5, and then I know that 8 and 4, my least common denominator is going to be 8, so I am going to put 8 as my denominator for both. Okay, and then I know that 8 times 1 is 8, so same rule applies to the numerator, so 7 times 1 is 7. Okay, and then I'm going to look at 4 times 2 is 8. So 1 times 2 is going to give me 2. So here's this part plus negative 2 thirds. Okay. So now I am going to again simplify over here. So I have 2/5, and I know that these are opposite signs. So I have 7 minus 2 actually. All right. So that becomes 5. All right. So this is going to be 5/8 plus negative 2/3. Okay. Now, don't look at the same thing and start adding, because the next step is what? Multiplication. Okay. So I am going to look at this, basically means multiplication. So I'm going to simplify. 5 divided by 5, I get 1. 1 times 2 is 2, and 4 times 2 is 8. Okay. So I now have 1 times 1, which is 1, and 1 times 4, which is 4. 1/4 plus negative 2/3. Okay. And so I am again now going to simplify, by finding the common denominator. And my common denominator in this case from 4 and 3 is going to be 12. Okay. 12 over here. Okay. And so I know that 4 times, if I have 3, so 4 times 3 gives me 12, right? And so this is going to be 3/12, and 3 times, so this is 4 times 3, 1 times 3. Whatever I do to the denominator, I do the same thing to the numerator. 3 times 4, so 2 times 4, which is going to be this. Okay. So I get 3/12 and I get negative 8/12. Now, since they are opposite signs, but the denominator is the same, I am going to subtract the 3 from the 8. Okay. And I get 8 minus 3, I get 5/12. And then the sign in front of the bigger number is negative. So this is going to be minus. Okay. And there is my answer in the simplest form. All right. Using the order of operations. Let's do one last problem to make sure that you have understood this concept. And so basically this is all it is. It is just applying the order of operations. Okay. All right. So let's do a problem where I am evaluating x plus, all right, 3/10 y minus z, all right. Um, if x if x is equal to negative 5/6, y is equal to 1/3, and z is equal to 3/4. Z is equal to 3/4. All right. So first thing I am going to do again is I am going to substitute the values. Okay. Now, so x is what? X is negative 5/6. I choose to write 3/10, which is a decimal, in the same form as the others, which are fractions, because it's going to be easier to compute when I am changing them into the same format. And we have talked about this before. So if I say 3/10, it is actually what? 3/10 as a fraction. So plus 3/10, I'm going to write it like this. All right. And then y is equal to 1/3 minus z, which is equal to 3/4. Okay. So y is equal to 1/3 and z is equal to 3/4, and so that's what I'm going to do first. All right, now after that I am going to look at my order of operations. Do I have parentheses? Absolutely. So that's what I am going to solve first. Okay, so I have 1/3 minus 3/4 in the parentheses, so I'm going to solve this part first. So bring everything else down as is so that we don't mess up our steps. Okay, and within parentheses I know that um, 3 and 4, the least common denominator is going to be 12. Okay, it's going to be 12. So I'm going to write 12 and 12. And I know that 3 times 4 gives me 12. So 1 times 4 is going to be 4 over here. Okay, then I look at this one. I know that 4 times 3 is 12. Whatever I do to the denominator, I do exactly the same thing to the numerator. So 3 times 3, and that gives me 9/12. All right, so I have 4/12 minus 9/12 in parentheses now. And since they are the same denominator, now I can add or subtract. So I am basically adding the opposite. Okay, so then because they are different signs, I'm just going to do 9 minus 4, and I am going to get 5. Okay, so let's write the next step. 5/6 plus 3/10 times 9 minus 4 is 5 over 12, and the sign in front of the this number is minus. So this is my uh, parentheses part solved. Okay, next we're going to look at the order of operations. Do I have multiplication? Yes. So that is the next step that I am going to solve. Okay, so this basically means multiplication. So let me take the common factors. I have 5 divided by 5 gives me 1, and 10 divided by 5 gives me 2. All right. And then I have a 3 and 12 have the common factor of 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay. So I have this much now. And then I am going to now look at its negative 5/6. All right, plus let's see, 1 times 1, and remember the sign over here is minus because we are multiplying a positive and a negative, so opposite signs, and I'm going to get a negative product. Okay, so negative 1, and then 2 times 4 is 8. So here is the next part. Okay, now I'm just going to do the rest of it over here. So I have negative 5/6 now plus negative 1/8. Okay. So when I look at this, I have got to again see that, all right, both the denominators are not the same. So I have got to find the common denominator. And if I look at 6 and 8, I know that it is going to be 24. And you all know how to find the LCM. Okay. So we are going to have 24. This is minus, plus we are going to have over here another negative, and this denominator is 24. So I'm trying to make a common denominator. Okay, now let's look at this. 6 times what gives me 24? 6 times 4 gives me 24. Whatever I do to the denominator, I do exactly the same thing to the numerator. So 5 times 4, and I get 20. All right, and then 8 times 3 gives me 24. So same thing with the numerator, and I get 3. Okay, and now since they are the same signs, all I'm doing is taking the numerators, and I have negative 20 and I have another negative 3. That becomes a total of negative 23. All right, so negative 23 over 24. Okay, so here this is going to be my final answer, right? So once again, evaluating and applying rational number operations, it's really simple. It's same thing like whole numbers, where we are using parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, so the order of operations, which would be PEMDAS. All right, have a great day, y'all.